Well, the gloves are off in the main opposition, People's Democratic Party, PDP. This week, the troubled party inaugurated its National Convention Organizing Committee, with leaders warning that they will no longer tolerate acts capable of undermining the party or the convention. In true form, FCT Minister, a constant thorn in the party's flesh, Wike has issued fresh conditions for the conduct of the convention. But the PDP's leadership says this time, no more dilly-dally. Enough is enough. And with me are three commentators who are experts at scouring the headlines, and they are the policy strategist and group CEO of the global investment and trade company Yusuf, the legislative consultant and public policy analyst Okereke, and current affairs analyst and professor of communications at Baze University, Abuja, Abiodun, Adeniyi. Gentlemen, glad to have you join me here on Prime Time in the studio.
Thank you.
Also in the news this week, the fallout from the local government elections in Rivers State, in which the APC clinched 20 out of 23 local government areas. Wike has hailed the results of the polls, but opposition parties, including the PDP, have rejected the election, claiming the process was marred by widespread irregularities and rigging. All right, my commentators are experts. They're still in the studio with me. Gentlemen, once more, glad to have you join me in the studios.
Thank you.
All right, well, PDP has inaugurated its 110 convention committee with the party's NPS Ologo Abada's National Publicity Secretary warning that anything less than 100% loyalty will attract sanctions. Is the party finally getting to grips on its myriads of challenges, and do you see them now as a viral opposition rather to the APC? Let me start with you, Yusuf.
Well, thank you indeed. It's good to be here. It's still early days to know if at all the PDP has been able to beat the curve of crisis they are facing. In my humble opinion, I am not really optimistic that PDP will be able to sort out this and still be able to put a very strong, fight 2027 presidential election. I foresee this linchpin strategy of Minister Yusuf Wike to still be the Achilles heels of the PDP. Build up to the convention, it's likely we'll still see the legal tussle come again with a view to, stifle the process, if you like. But then again, it's politics. We'll wait and see if the PDP, as it were, will be able to put a rabbit out of the hat and be able to put a good fight, after the convention, get a very credible and strong presidential candidate that will be able to put up a fight to upstage the incumbent.
Yeah, pull the rat out of the hat. Well, Wike is still speaking. He's not letting go. He says he's insisting that Dan Obi must be accepted as the National Vice Chairman South-South, and the East Donor Congress must be also accepted. The party says it will not take conditions from anyone. Chibuzo.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the party is very correct. The political party, at the heart of it, is political power contestation, maneuvering, and that is what we see playing out. Unfortunately, the party has gotten to the level where certain individuals are, stating condition precedent for even a party national convention to happen. But what is interesting I've seen is that for the party to keep going to the level that this G5 group are now saying, oh, you have to recognize Vice Chairman South, you have to accept certain congresses that were done. That shows that I think the party has mustered courage to try to use their constitutional means to overcome the challenges they've been facing, especially from the FCT minister and his team. One would thought that maybe the FCT minister won a bit of the struggle by the resolution of NEC But before then, it was even difficult for NEC to meet. So for now, it's a balance. And let's see how they are able to overcome this kind of condition. But it's actually unconstitutional for one person or just a few group of people to give a party conditions outside its own constitution to be able to hold a convention.
Unconstitutional for a person to give party conditions, and the PDP roaring loudly saying that cannot happen. To you, Professor Abiodun, he talked about a group calling themselves the eminent leaders and concerned stakeholders of the party. They are saying if their resolutions are not accepted, it will render the convention coming up in Ibadan or your state, where Makinde holds on the 15th and the 16th. They say it will render that convention invalid. One of their resolutions is that the chairman must be from the North Central. After their meeting, the PDP meeting, Damagun was now instituted as a substantive chairman. He's not from the North Central. What's your thinking, Prof?
Well, before then, I think it's very important for us to underscore the fact that the PDP is at an abysmal low, and that low is coming from the fact that the spirit of the party, the spirit of the need to build a team is already broken. And if you do not mend that spirit, there's nothing else that you do that will work. You know, we have a very powerful minister that seems to be having fun at the expense of the party. He's got an interest in an opposition party, and he still has refused to leave, you know, the party that he has ordinarily belonged to many years before now. His factor cannot be undermined in the bid for PDP to make progress. If they imagine they can undermine him, they will be undermining as well the progress that they want to make, unfortunately. Now, what I rather think they should do, and of course, if it is not done in the immediate circumstance, like Baba Yusuf said, we should be expecting a third-party intervention, third-party represented in the judiciary. And when a third party is coming in, you do not know whether it will go left or right, irrespective of how you think, how correct you think you are. So what I think the party should do is not to be tired of conciliation, not to be tired of dialogue and diplomatic moves, you know, to assuage whichever group, and in this case, the most potent being the one led by the FCT minister. You know, they should, I think, continue, you know, to try to mend fences, you know, because if they ignore this part, you know, resulting to extreme words that I see them beginning to use, you know, they're beginning to say a faction of fools, you know, words that are absolute, that can be hurting, then of course the broken spirits might just continue to degenerate into a low that they ordinarily shouldn't find themselves. Remember also, Undi, that the PDP is still suffering from the exits of major stakeholders, people who have been the bedrock of the party over the years. Some of them are in ADP, you know, some is ADC now, some are in PDP, and they're just scattered all over the place. That's a major concern that they should ordinarily be worried about, you know. But beyond that also is an internal disease that they are here to deal with. That disease, so to say, speaking rhetorically, has to be dealt with. It cannot be ignored. It cannot be badgered down. You cannot use gung-ho or strong-arm tactics to deal with it, remembering that that disease, you know, is very, very dangerous and very powerful, as the case could be. It will just continue to enjoy itself at the expense of the party if care is not taken, if serious amends are not made. And the amend that can be made now is through diplomacy, you know, continuous talking. They shouldn't think that they are tired, or they are rather that they are at their wits' end. How was Fubara, for instance, able to mend fences with Wike? At some point, yes, we may like it, we may not like it. We may say principles have been sacrificed, you know, or egos have been badgered. But of course, we are seeing some kind of peace between the two now. So if this is possible in politics, why can't the PDP hierarchy look for this kind of option so that they can make consequential progress, unlike the very one that we seem to be having, where they imagine that they are making progress, but someone else is singing another song. The overall objective is for them to avoid continually being in 6s and 7s, as the case could be in the.
Talking about the peace, Fubara Wike, some might not quite agree with you on that. I mean, the peace, some people call it the peace of the graveyard. In fact, we're going to soon go into the Rivers polls anyway. But still on the PDP, Baba Yusuf, Bauchi Governor Bala Mohammed said that tinkering with the idea of former President Jonathan or Obi running, because of course they have the presidential slot has been ceded to the south. But Wike again says bringing back Obi will kill the party.
In my opening remarks, and I've said it consistently even in this studio and in my writings, it's what I call the linchpin strategy of Minister Nyesom Wike. I'm not mystifying Minister Nyesom Wike, but speaking to the obvious. The end game for Minister Nyesom Wike is to ensure that the PDP is not stable enough to bring a credible candidate, whether it is His Excellency Peter Obi or His Excellency former President Goodluck Jonathan, and to ensure that doesn't happen. So all the way you will see this spoiler game being played by Minister Nyesom Wike. And for the PDP, fortunately or unfortunately, I'd rather say unfortunately, like in Hausa will say, they have slept on their hands and they have allowed the cub to become a lion. They were supposed to ensure 4 or 5 years ago, they did not allow the structure to be held the way Nyesom Wike has done. So going forward, if you ask me, the two candidates are good candidates. And the assignment of Mr. Nyesom Wike is to ensure that none of them emerges as a PDP candidate, because indeed either of them will be a very formidable candidate for the APC. So that is the catch-22 or political cul-de-sac that the PDP elders allowed themselves to be boxed into. Further down the line, we'll talk about how you allow politics, funding of political parties to be in the hand of an individual, to the extent that after a while you will not be able to have a voice, or you'll not be able to have a say.
Yeah. All right. Let's go to the Rivers polls now. Again, after the by-elections, it was I was going to say Arise News. After the polls, it was APC again swept it in Rivers State. Is this a sign of things to come? Atiku calls it a travesty of justice, should be rejected. Obi describes it as rascality taken too far. Illegality can never give birth to legitimacy. Chibuzo.
Well, just before I go into that, this issue of dictative tendencies of one man or a few group over a political party shows us how deficient the institutional framework around party works in Nigeria. It's practically a personality trait issue and not an institutional arrangement, because otherwise it is the members of the party that should go and elect who will flag their flag in an election. And going to Rivers, I tell people we cannot import what is not in our constitution into the constitution, no matter how we love other democracies of the world. For instance, in India, I think section 356 of their constitution makes provision for what they call presidential rule. In Nigeria, we do not have such a thing. And section 305, that 308 never contemplated a situation where a sole administrator, which is an interim government, put in place to manage an emergency situation, suddenly transform into a very democratic personality conducting local government election in Rivers. That on its own was unconstitutional, and I don't think in the instrument of state of emergency that was even provided by the president and wasn't ratified by the National Assembly. So those actions cannot stand. And what we should worry about is when we set a dangerous precedent we may have done this today. Tomorrow, it will be taken to another level. And that is the experience and history in Nigeria. That is why we shouldn't even have started in the first place, allowing a situation where a sole administrator will conduct election for a democratically elected.
For you, it is illegitimate.
No, absolutely. And even the declaration of the result will tell you how he prepared the umpire. Where at the time, they couldn't even tell us the parties that scored the vote, what they got. They couldn't even tell how many accredited voters, how many votes that were voided. They simply announced individuals and the total vote they got. That is below even the bar in worse elections we have seen.
Again, you talk about INEC there. Still on INEC, Prof, Yaga Africa says use of beavers should be compulsory. That's what they says. Non-compulsory use of beavers in the election. It should be, but it wasn't done. And reports, by the way, say that security personnel, agents, of parties were more in number, so much more in number than the people who were supposed to come to vote. That is voter party. Prof.
I think, first of all, it's also very important for us to emphasize the fact that attorneys will always tell us that you cannot build something on nothing. From our own understanding, we have a democratic dispensation. We now have an aberration in a sole administrator. And that entity or that contraption somewhat has gone ahead to conduct an election, that is not supposed to do. We need to question that in the first instance because it doesn't look legitimate, or it has given us a situation where the legitimacy is questionable. But for the sake of argument now, the election, of course, came out typically fraught with controversies. And it's also gratifying that we're having Yaga Africa examining it and coming to this conclusion. First, it's a welcome development. Many of our observers in the past have only, paid the bigger attention to national elections. So it's a welcome development that they are beginning to go local, to develop some more penetrating eyes into the things happening, at the states, at the levels of the state, where some of these, vices are much more profound. But having said that, also the many ills you mentioned, the many weaknesses, limitations you mentioned are not unexpected, considering the character of our electionary process. Where people are simply die-hearted about winning. And if they are die-hearted about winning, valid allegations have also been made, how security agencies have been complicit, So it must have something that has been, telegrammed, to say, okay, this is the direction in which we want the results to be. This is the direction in which we want the outcome to be. And who else can guarantee that direction, if not for people, vested with force? But again, this might just be allegation, but there are valid reasons for us to be suspicious of the fact that we're having, more security personnel than the voters. At the end of the day, was there peace, relative peace, even though there were pockets of violence? That's quite fine. But what about the outcome? Is it credible? Is it fair? Is it transparent? Of course, definitely not so. Now, how do we move forward from there? First, we have to continue to learn our lessons, not to be less vociferous about coming victorious at elections. Then what lesson can we take from there in the build-up to the state elections ahead of us, the Anambra election, the Ekiti election, and in the build-up to the general election? The same story, the same limitations have been what we've been referring to in the last couple of years, particularly since the beginning of our democracy. So what improvement are we really making overall? Very, very, marginal improvement, I dare say. But can we make progress? Can we be much more transparent, credible, and fair going into the future? Of course, if personnel, can realize that institutions matter more than their interests, like Chibuzo referred to. Institutions are the vehicle that propels society to growth and development, to stability and sustainability, not the whims and caprices of individuals, as the case could be.
Interesting. Can we, Baba Yusuf, you just take this along with this question. The suspended governor, Fubara, was conspicuously absent with his allies, chief of staff, 23 local governments that were sacked by the Supreme Court. They said, asked why they didn't go to vote, they said, why would we go to vote when we know the winners before the election? That's what they said, and so why vote? Now, take that along with the fact what Chibuzo raised about building something or nothing, the question of sole administrator,
yes,
conducting elections. Shouldn't that be corrected?
Well, it's an aberration ab initio, indeed, and all well-meaning Nigerians spoke against this, all well-meaning Democrats. And like Prof mentioned, this will set us up for things we may not like to see in the future. Now, the game plan from the beginning, actually, was to wrestle the state power from Governor Fubara and dismantle his political structure that was emerging and contesting with the political structure of Minister Wike. Now the game is over. Obviously, all the political structure of Wike has been re-established. And what you have is a lame dog governor that will come back and just sit out the remaining days of his tenure. Very sad. It's a tragedy and travesty of democracy. But this is the situation we have in Nigeria. I don't blame President Bola Ahmed Tinubu for this. I blame the National Assembly for this, because indeed the National Assembly is composed of opposition, legislators.
You don't blame him. He was the one that declared a state of emergency. Baba Yusuf.
Let me land, indeed. Let me have my say, please. The legislators within the provision of the Constitution, the National Assembly has a role to play. You see, if we continue trying to be politically correct or try to take a side on these issues, that makes us the elite part of the problem of this country. Yes, the president has that power to do that. But the people in the National Assembly that call themselves the opposition legislators, and even those for the ruling parties, have claimed to earn their place in the political position in this country. And they sat down and played along and allowed it to happen. So we cannot just put the responsibility wholesome on the table of Mr. President. We must learn to apportion responsibility to those that have been in cahoots to where we are today, including we, the thought leaders and contributors, to where we have to come to where we are today so that we can address this issue. Otherwise, it will continue to happen. That being said, like I said, we have a National Assembly that rubber-stamped it, and of course, it's a game plan that was supposed to end where it has ended. Of course, Governor Purvala also, I have said it many times, has his own portion of blame. When you decide, like John F. Kennedy said, to ride on the back of a tiger, you should know that you will end up in his stomach. And it is commonsensical to have a strategy to say within the timeline of X months or X years, you are going to play along with your predecessor and your political benefactor. I'll bet you play the game for the long game. But he played into hands of cheerleaders, also political interest group around the sidelines, who I believe don't even have the interests of Rivers State at heart, and pushed him to fight with the predecessor. At the end of the day, obviously, it was a fight he was not going to win. And in strategy, this is not good for him, because obviously he's going to sit it out. At the end of the day, the people that are on the losing side are the poor people of Rivers State who have been shortchanged, with democratic tenets. But of course, Fubara and Wike and all the politicians are same actors in different costumes.
Interesting analysis. Before we move out of the politics of Rivers State, Chibuzo, the concerned, or rather the coalition of Rivers State elders of thought, that's what they call themselves, they called the election a charade, and they said that RISIEC, that's Rivers Independent Electoral Commission, Rivers State Independent Electoral Commission, did not abide by the 90 days notice.
Yeah, elections are done by rules and law. And already we have established that we have an aberration. Remember, it was this same sole administrator who appointed the commissioners of the River State Independent Electoral Commission. So this is more like a game plan set out to achieve a predetermined goal. And that is why you have Governor Fubra and his colleagues saying, oh, we are not going to be a part of this. And I think that we should learn how to play by our own rules, our laws and our constitution. We all watched why a sole administrator embarked on mission that was not part of the mandate given to him in the first place, making critical appointments that only substantive democratically elected people have the mandate to do. My worry is not what is happening today, but who will weaponize this dangerous precedent to further, bury the life of our democracy in the future. And this is not right. So many stakeholders are speaking out, but beyond speaking out like we have seen in the past, we must have concrete actions and consequences for this. And this is where the judiciary must rise to the occasion to simply save the face of our democracy by avoiding all these actions. I don't know why we say we're in a country, we're in a state governed by laws and constitution, and we are afraid to even play fair, to compete fairly. And this is not what happened in River, and it shouldn't be so. The state is not, it's like it has been captured, and you are looking at millions of people. And this is also a call to citizens. Active citizenship is the alternative. The citizens must embrace political process and know that it's not a profession for a few. It is a government that is for all. Yeah.
The state has been captured. Who will bail the cat out of the bag? I mean, that's the question now. So our democracy will not hinge on a curve trying to follow the cliff. You're still watching Arise Prime Time. Plenty more still ahead. When we return, don't go away. I'm glad to have you back. You're still watching Arise Prime Time, where we offer perspectives on the news and talking points of the day. I am Ndi Amogo. This week, the federal government patted itself on the back for a job well done in the economic sector. Non-oil revenues up, revenue targets have been met for the year without having to borrow. There has also been negative news. The Ministry of Foreign Affairs has publicly acknowledged financial and operational challenges facing several Nigerian diplomatic and consular missions abroad due to budgetary constraints and foreign exchange policy shifts. All right, with me in the studio, our policy strategist, that's still here, and Group CEO of the Global Investment and Trade Company, Yusuf, the legislative consultant and public policy analyst, Okereke, and of course, the current affairs analyst and professor of communications at Baze University, Abiodun. Debbie, again, I start with you, Yusuf. Tinubu on revenue, he's beating his chest. He says he has achieved his revenue target from non-oil revenues. The question people are asking is at what cost? With more than 185% increase in customs duty, 10% increase in income tax, and more than 300% increase recently in the official passport, and there's a 2026 petroleum tax, 5% tax that is on the way. Yusuf, what are your thoughts on this?
Well, I heard the speech of Mr. President. As someone that believes in economic diversification, I was happy to see the numbers for the non-oil increasing, albeit, like you said, at what cost? And also, more importantly, for us to note the issue with regards borrowing, that we are not borrowing from Nigerian banks, but to note that we already are, having about 15 trillion, over 15 trillion, provided for in the 2025 budget to service debt. And we are already going to borrow again around 13 trillion or more. I mean, over 13 trillion actually to finance the servicing of the debt. So when you look at it, while we have said we have achieved so much with regards to open our non-oil revenues, which is commendable, what have we been able to achieve with regards to the oil revenue as itself? NNPC is still struggling, to be able to match that and for us to be able to beat the curve for the last quarter of the year. I hope and pray that we are also putting within this context. Of course, Mr. President also acknowledged the fact that these numbers will not be able to cut it for his education, health, and other sectorial, targets for 2025. But more also importantly for me is sustainability. Moving into 2026, don't forget we have capital, budget for last year, 2024 still running in 2025, and a lot of outstanding with regards to payment of our obligations with the contracts capital projects, which are key to the delivery of the renewed hope agenda. So I hope the whole issue will be looked at holistically. Now, more importantly, to drill down to the microeconomic on the streets, poor people in the village, healthcare, education, and all that. So that is it about that. With regards to the foreign missions, I think it is time for Mr. President, with profound respect, to be able to really, really save the face of Nigeria in the Committee of Nations. And my suggestion is at least for us to have a batched approach to the appointment of the diplomats if we are in such dire states with regards, to finances. I don't think the United Nations or anybody will take us serious if we continue giving the excuse that we are not able to fund our foreign missions, even if we are going to batch them and segment them so that we demonstrate. Of course, the Mr. President is Chief Marketing Officer of the country, but he's not supposed to be doing that himself all the time. We have international protocols, and wouldn't want to lose face, in the Committee of Nations with regards to this very crucial part of our foreign policy.
All right. Well, Chibuzosom said the president is disconnected from reality. He sets his exams, he marks it quite at variance with the exam that the citizens have set for him. Citizens are struggling, facing hardship, and huge disparity between rising fees and stagnant incomes. Chibuzo.
So the Nigerian government over the years has always been big on revenue, driving revenue, getting more people in the tax net. The president must have felt very excited announcing that he has hit his revenue target for the year. Unfortunately, there are even immediate contradictions even within those statements. First, one could say that he met a revenue to debt service at 95%. As at now, we are servicing with over 60% of our revenue. And within that mix, you see the foreign missions crying out. If we have all these monies and we are not clear on our foreign policy, how we can manage our diplomatic relation, you can see the condition of the foreign mission. Just a previous week before that time, the Minister of State for Labor, screamed in the public that she doesn't even have office to operate from. And then you see all these issues coming about. What are we supposed to be, what target is government supposed to be meeting? In this kind of forum where the president announced the revenue target has been met, we should also have him reflect on how many citizens have been pulled out of poverty, on how many out-of-school children that have been restored back. And there is this new narrative about state governors are now getting more money. And we are not having the state governors also give quarterly, except a few, report an account of how they are tackling socio-economic welfare of the people. So indeed, it appears to be like a contradiction. One, we are doing well with the revenue target you have set. We still have huge debt deficit. We still have over 60% debt servicing burden and a huge debt portfolio. On the other hand, we still have critical socioeconomic and standard of living that are continuously, deteriorating, and the people are concerned. So now that the president has publicly declared that he has money to solve Nigeria's socioeconomic problem, we should now see another report where the social welfare of the people have been significantly improved.
Yep, yeah. Very important. Prof, to you, what do you make of this NIS, Immigration Service, saying that the increase in passport was necessary to enhance service delivery, combat corruption, and expedite passport application process? Do you need to increase the price to do all that he mentioned, combat corruption, do you need to increase the price to do that?
Oh, if I'm to give a yes or no answer, I would just say no, because there are two things. Passport is very symbolic, it's an evidence of nationality, something that should engender pride in the bearer. But when it is made, when the possession of one becomes very difficult on account of costs, it doesn't speak well of the state, as the case could be. So on the face of it, I think I would disagree with the ministry, and perhaps they need to give us more explanation on why there has to be an increase in the first instance. And of course, if you look at fellow African countries, South Africa, reports have told us, how accessible, how affordable their passport can be in a situation where minimum wage is even is higher, than our own. Here our minimum wage is 70, and passport is on the high side. Perhaps maybe before government actually thought about increasing the costs, they should have imagined that, it's an evidence of nationality. And being an evidence of nationality, government could have thought about subsidizing the costs, and not just throwing the cost at the citizens or somebody who intends to bear a passport, Yes, it might be expensive, there might be costs hidden and open, involved in the production of one, but the cost shouldn't be thrown to the citizens that are already yearning, citizens that are already crying, already badgered somewhat by the ongoing economic reform. And that will lead me to my own comment, if I may, on the president's comment. It looks, again, cherry on its own part, that we're making more income, targets are being met, and especially from non-oil sector, custom and excise, perhaps agriculture, perhaps the creative economy, perhaps steel development, perhaps agriculture. Maybe I mentioned that earlier, I beg your pardon. And of course, it speaks again to the age-old cry for us to diversify our economy. So if diversification is now coming in, it's something that we should be salutary about. But beyond that, again, is if we are making more money or if we are meeting our targets, why are we still resorting to the economics of borrowing? Why are we not prudent enough? Why are we not using the resources we are otherwise making very well, so that, we won't be looking outwards. We would rather be inward looking. And what more are we doing, to prevent corruption? The pilfering of these resources coming in, as programmed, Are we sure that we are blocking leakages very well? Are we sure that there's transparency and accountability in the system? From the optics, from the things that we see around us, of course, my response would be in the negative. But like I always like to say, but can we still do some more, put in some more efforts, to reduce this, if we cannot completely eliminate it? I beg to say, yes, there are so many things that we can do, and one line of action will definitely come on the part of leadership, exemplified in the personality of the president, prudent approach to governance, reduced traveling, reduction in luxuration as well, irrespective of the reasons that they might advance to indulge in these, these things that we see around us every day. The optics has to be right so that citizens can properly key into the narrative of change that the government is trying to project.
Right. All right, insecurity also dominated the headlines this week. We still have this gentleman here in the studio. I start with you again here now. Baba Yusuf, the DDG, Salisu Mohammed of the NEF, that's Northern Elders Forum, is calling for emergency over continuous violence in the North. Well, he said that they put together a document that they sat down and crafted for 9 months, short, medium, long term, and they have submitted that to the president or presidency for a holistic approach to addressing security in the nation, especially in the North. They called it a national emergency. Baba Yusuf, what do you make of that?
Well, that was a very good effort put in by the Northern Elders. And I watched it, and he said they have submitted it to the presidency for consideration. I would like all of us to continue speaking truth to power, making our own contribution. But as a northern Nigeria, I also have a slightly different view with regards to the issues we have, particularly in the north. With profound respect to our elders and colleagues, we should also understand that the entire problem of the north is not entirely a federal government issue. We have regional and state-level issues that we can resolve through non-kinetic means, through socio-economic interventions, by state governors, by legislators. The number of out-of-school children cannot be squarely put at the foot of the federal government. Primary school, secondary education is the responsibility of governors, for example, which is a subset of the overarching insecurity issues we are having in the out-of-school children, the issues of crime rates in Kano, in other states, due to drug addiction and phone snatching. These are what I call the micro-insecurity issues that the northern elders should pressure the states to do by putting their feet to fire, by also engaging them, rather than us making it look as if any president that is in power is against the North. We are being sustained. So we should have a multidimensional approach to this, so that we deal with the micro and quick win issues while we continue engaging the federal government to deal with the bigger picture issues.
All right. Well, interestingly, the governor of Zamfara State, Adeniyi, said something quite interesting. He said that banditry will become a thing of the past if he had direct control over security agencies, because he says he has what he calls tracking devices and knows where the bandits are, when they go out and when they're coming, and that he monitors them on his phone. This will bring to the fore the leveraging on technology and the fact of state police, which the president also touched a little bit, Chibuzo.
Well, I think this is a hype on kinetic measure, which many stakeholders have said that is not the only solution, and Baba Yusuf rightly captured it. You see, what the document respectfully submitted by the Elders Forum to the President should also go to all the governors, go to all the senators, all the state houses of assembly members, go to all the local government chairmen. They all receive allocations and they have a role to play. For instance, in any of those states, northern states, which local government chairman can show you a dashboard of the demography in his LG? How many houses, how many men, how many women, how many hospitals, how many markets? Who has it? How are you planning development, which is core at the local government level? I know a foundation is a foundation that conducted a study solution to end Daba in Kano. One NGO, one non-state actor, engaging stakeholders, the criminal element responsible for phone snatching, bag snatching, and causing mayhem in Kano. And then a government is still not able to do that. And that's what I call the politics of insecurity in Nigeria. And if we want to address this and not just play politics, we should invest more in non-kinetic issues and use data. I agree with technology. If you track bandits and kill 10, there is 50 more waiting somewhere. So you keep tracking and keep killing. Is that what we're going to keep doing? How do we put up a technology-driven system that is even preventive, being able to get these people? Sometimes people just want to be shown love. People just want care. People want that there is a government that they belong to. I just want to, care. Many of them were born homeless. They didn't have parents. But there's no governmental structure or system that tracks and engages them. The NGOs and CSO that engages them are simply private. There's no meeting point between them and the government. And we can't continue to run such system.
We have just less than 3 or 2 minutes. Prof, I'll come to you now. I wanted to address one more insecurity, but let me just, all right, I had this 1 minute. Simon Ekpa, arrested in faraway Finland, is going to spend 6 years behind the bars. What will that do for the Southeast and for the question of the proscribed IPOP? What do you make of that arrest?
Well, when it comes to matters of insecurity, which is a monkey that we really need to get out of our back, get off our back, you can't really be too sure. We can only hope that with the arrest, prosecution and sanctioning, it will eventually translate to relief. In the southeast and by extension, the entire country, as the case could be. But one lesson I think we should take out of this is that if you look at the pace at which the trial was conducted, from the time of apprehension, the time of prosecution, and the time of sanctioning, everything was precise, speak and span. What can we do? What lesson can we learn from here, so that our judiciary or the criminal justice system, can be better managed and will not have cases lasting until eternity. That's a major instruction that we could probably take from it. But overall, we can only hope that tomorrow will be better than yesterday regarding our security situation, which has remained unfortunate indeed.
Of communications, Abiodun Adeniyi there, Baba Yusuf, the strategist, and then Chibuzo Okereke. Thank you, gentlemen.
Sunday,
I know.
Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen, for your time. On Prime Time, well, that's it for this edition of Arise Prime Time. Do join us again sometime, well, next week, not sometime next week. From me and the entire team here in Abuja, goodbye, and thank you for watching.